On today's Public Eye News, news from all around the state of Michigan and more on GM's plans to cut jobs.
Grant Lukens gives us our weather forecast, and Devon will be back later in the show to discuss last night's NMU Notre Dame hockey matchup. Hi, I'm Samantha Carter.
I'm Devon Lanier, and this is Public Eye News. A Court of Claims judge has dismissed a lawsuit brought by Marinesco Township that seeks to block the closure of the Ojibwe Correctional Facility, the Michigan Department of Corrections said earlier today. The lawsuit, which was filed in September, claimed that Marinesco Township was not given enough time or the opportunity to be heard before the decision was made to close the prison on Saturday. It also claimed that the Department of Corrections did not consider the economic impact on the community after closing the prison. The Department of Corrections argued that they did not violate any rights to due process because it is not mandated that they contact the township prior to closing the prison. They also claimed that they did look into the economic impact and that there are no required methods involving contacting local officials. This story will be updated as more information comes from Marinesco Township leaders. The city of Bessemer says their water and sewer system has pipes running under the U.S. Highway number 2 that are more than 80 years old and need to be replaced. The Michigan Department of Transportation, MDOT, has agreed to fund the project partially, so the portion of U.S. Highway number 2 running through the city will have to be reconstructed. With this plan, the city is faced with 4 options: leave the city and 4-lane highway as is, keep the 4-lane highway but rebuild it to match new federal codes. A third option is to create a 3-lane road with a left turn lane, or there can be a combination of both options 3 and 4, which would result in widening from 3 lanes to 4 in industrial park areas of the city. The city says they hope to have a final plan to MDOT by January 2019, and construction won't begin until 2021.
In state news, Michigan State Senate is making progress on a bill that would allow the Mackinac Bridge Authority to help implement a deal to replace all pipelines in the Straits of Mackinac. The Republican-led Senate Government Operations Committee passed the bill 3-2 on party lines this morning, and the entire Senate could vote the same way later today. Governor Rick Snyder hopes to lock in the pipeline replacement before leaving office. And in more news from Lansing, yesterday Michigan lawmakers voted to approve new medical marijuana licensing rules. A new provision now allows dispensaries to deliver up to 2.5 ounces of the drug to cardholders' homes. So far, the state of Michigan has licensed 67 medical marijuana businesses, including 40 provisioning centers where cardholders will be able to buy the product.
In Congress, bills advancing in Michigan's Republican-controlled legislature could scale back new citizen-initiated laws to raise the minimum wage and require employees to provide paid sick leave. The Senate Government Operations Committee passed the legislation 3-2 along party lines earlier today. One bill would keep in place what eventually will be a $12 minimum hourly wage, but will remove a provision that raises the minimum for tipped employees to the level for other workers. Another bill would significantly change pending paid sick day requirements, reducing the number of hours from 72 to 36 annually. In other state news, a Michigan board recently approved tax breaks and other incentives they say will create more than 4,500 jobs, including 2,500 at Ford Motor Company. The incentives are part of the automaker's plan to renovate Detroit's train depot and redevelop nearby properties for researching and developing self-driving vehicles. The board also approved $31 million in tax incentives for the mobility company Aptiv to renovate a facility in Troy and hire 500 engineers and staff. Other incentives authorized include a $10 million grant for Samsung SDI to put its first high-volume automotive battery pack manufacturing plant in Auburn Hills, which will supposedly create more than 400 jobs. And after the break, we'll have your national and international news.
This may look like fun and games, but polar bear cubs must overcome obstacles every day. Dangerous glaciers lie ahead of them. Aggressive males stalk behind them. But this experienced mom will guide the cubs every step of the way. Join us for an Arctic adventure full of wonder and surprises.
Tonight at 8 and tomorrow at noon on Public TV 13.
Welcome back. In news from Capitol Hill, senators are considering a vote to halt U.S. involvement in the Saudi-led war in Yemen. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo addressed senators this morning and told them that America's national security interests are at stake in the wake of the killing of journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Saudi Arabia. A vote could happen as early as this afternoon, but the White House has already issued a statement that a veto could end a Senate resolution. And President Trump is looking at ways to stop General Motors from slashing thousands of jobs and shutting down up to 5 auto plants. Mo Lenghi has more details from the White House.
President Trump says he's upset with General Motors after the auto manufacturer announced it's cutting 14,000 jobs and closing 5 plants. The president tweeted, "We are now looking at cutting all GM subsidies, including for electric cars." GM stock started to drop almost simultaneously as the president tweeted.
I can't say anything final about that, but we're looking into it. Again, that reflects the president's own disappointment regarding these actions.
The restructuring plan shifts GM's focus from sedans to more popular trucks and SUVs.
That's where they're making money. They still have to make their trucks. They still have to make SUVs. That's the only thing people are buying.
But President Trump says tariffs are the reason Americans buy trucks, tweeting, "If we did that with cars coming in, many more cars would be built here, and GM would not be closing their plants in Ohio, Michigan, and Maryland."
We'll see what the president does with auto tariffs, which in theory would help GM, but the way global supply chains work, the auto industry, including U.S. automakers, really don't want to see it.
President Trump is preparing to sign his reworked NAFTA trade deal with Canada and Mexico Friday during his trip to Argentina for the G20 summit. And auto manufacturing was a big part of those negotiations.
The USMCA deal was a great help to the automobile industry and to auto workers.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau tweeted, "President Trump and I had a good call today to discuss GM, the auto industry, and how to best support people affected on both sides of the border." Mo Lenghi, CBS News, the White House.
With more news in the Middle East, Afghan officials reported Wednesday that Taliban insurgents staged a coordinated attack that targeted a security firm in the eastern part of the capital. The attack resulted in at least 10 people being killed and 19 others being wounded after a suicide bomber detonated explosives and Taliban fighters engaged security forces in a gun battle. The attack came hours after provincial officials said at least 30 civilians were killed, along with 16 Taliban fighters during an overnight skirmish between Afghan government forces and insurgents in the southern Helmand province. The attacks were the latest in a series of near-daily Taliban assaults on military, police forces, government, and other installations throughout the country. The Lion Air jetliner that crashed in Indonesia last month should have been grounded because of equipment problems and the airline's safety failures. CBS's Gwen Baumgartner is in London with details of a newly released report.
Just 11 minutes after takeoff in Jakarta, Lion Air Flight 610 plummeted into the Java Sea. The October crash killed 189 people and raised crucial questions about the plane, a brand new 737 MAX 8, and its pilots.
If they had immediately followed the procedure without hesitation, turned off the cutoff switches, this may not have happened.
Investigators say a new anti-stall system known as MCAS overtook the controls and repeatedly pushed the nose of the plane down. Pilots fought to reposition the jetliner more than 24 times before it finally crashed.
Why did they fly the airplane for 11 minutes, doing the same procedure that in fact was not getting them anywhere?
The crash report points to a faulty sensor on the outside of the aircraft that caused the MCAS system to malfunction, a problem pilots had on 3 previous flights. The sensor was replaced, but the problem continued. Crews are still searching for the cockpit voice recorder, which could provide more answers. The Boeing 737 MAX jet is one of the fastest-selling new models used by Southwest, American, and United Airlines. Pilot unions say Boeing added the MCAS system to the MAX, but it is not detailed in pilot manuals. Gwen Baumgartner, CBS News, London.
Steven Hillenburg, the creator of the children's show SpongeBob SquarePants, died yesterday at the age of 57. Hillenburg died yesterday of Lou Gehrig's disease, also known as ALS. Hillenburg conceived, wrote, produced, and directed the animated series that began in 1999 and bloomed into hundreds of episodes, movies, and a Broadway show. Hillenburg is survived by his wife of 20 years, Karen Hillenburg, and his son, Clay. And after the break, we'll be back with your weather and sports. Stay tuned.
The Bee Gees live in concert, recorded in Melbourne, Australia during their 1989 One for All tour.
And it's me you need to show. How deep is your love? How deep is your love?
Travel back in time to the supergroup's greatest hits.
Sunday night at 9:30 on Public TV 13.
And welcome back to your Public Eye News. I'm Grant Lukens, your weatherman. You can see behind me we have the beautiful NMU campus. There's a lot of green coming out, but hopefully that won't stay because we got some snow coming up. And looking at our current conditions, it is currently cloudy with a temperature of 20, winds northwest at 6 miles per hour, and a barometric pressure of 29.98 and falling. And going on to tonight, it is still going to be cloudy with a low of 16, winds south-southwest at 5 miles an hour. And moving into tomorrow, there's going to be some snow with a high of 30 and winds south-southeast at 8 miles an hour. And taking a look across the UP, it is currently all cloudy. But over in Sault Ste. Marie, it is currently 32. Down in Manistee, it is 29. Over in Escanaba and Menominee, it is 27. And taking a look at the other half of the UP, in Iron Mountain, it is 24. In Ironwood, it is 21. Up in Houghton, it is 27, and over in beautiful Marquette, it is 20 degrees. And taking a look ahead, Friday, we start with a high of 36, a low of 28, and partly cloudy. Saturday, we move into a high of 34, a low of 32, and some snow. And on Sunday, we have a high of 33, a low of 25, and clouds. So there's a gloomy week this week, but I hear the hockey team is also having some gloomy times.
Just a minor setback for the Wildcats.
That's right.
The NMU men's hockey team lost their final non-conference contest of the season 2-1 in overtime last night to the number 8 University of Notre Dame in the Compton Family Ice Arena. After Tuesday night's game, the Wildcats will return to the WCHA on December 7th when they host rival Michigan Tech in the Barry Events Center. Puck drop is set for 7 p.m., and the game will also feature a teddy bear toss. Over on the Wildcat hardwood, the NMU men's basketball team will begin GLIAC action this week by visiting Northwood University Thursday night and Saginaw Valley State University Saturday afternoon. Last week, the Wildcats picked up 2 wins at the Hillsdale Thanksgiving Classic when they defeated 2 former GLIAC foes, Ohio Dominican University and Hillsdale College. The Wildcats have continued their strong start to this season, starting the year with a 5-0 record as they enter conference play. Tip-off for Friday's game at Northwood will start at 8 p.m., followed by Saturday's game at Saginaw Valley, set for 3 p.m. And in the NBA, the Detroit Pistons are doing well for themselves, too, winning their 3rd straight game Tuesday night to topple the New York Knicks 115-108 at Little Caesars Arena. Power forward Blake Griffin led the team with 30 points, followed by small forward Stanley Johnson with 21 points off the bench, and point guard Reggie Jackson scored 21 points, including 17 in the first half. This was Detroit's 7th win in the last 9 games. With the win, the Pistons are at an 11-7 record for the season, and they are at 7-3 with games Friday against Chicago, Saturday against Golden State, and Tuesday against Oklahoma City up next.
Yeah, it's a real bummer to see that Northern lost last night at the hockey in Notre Dame, but it's exciting. I'm kind of looking forward to going to the Tech game for sure.
Yeah, they have that rivalry going on there, so hopefully we can pull off another win for us.
Yeah, but that's all the time we have for you here today at Public Eye News. Tune in again tomorrow.
The preceding program was produced in studios located in the Edgar L. Hardin Learning Resources Center by WNMU-TV, Northern Michigan University Public Television.